MSNFOX, we have a great show for you today. Today we will be discussing the complicated topic of fair trade. I would now like to introduce our honored guest, Ron Beakley, who is a representative of Fair Trade International, and John.
Would you like to come in?
How you doing, Bob?
I'm doing good.
How are the kids?
They're okay.
That's good.
But what is this fair trade I've heard so much about? I've seen it all over the companies like Starbucks, Ben & Jerry's, but what is it?
Thanks, Bob. Fair trade is about supporting the development of thriving farming and worker communities that have more control over their futures and protecting the environment in which they live and work. And it's your opportunity to connect with the people who grow the produce that we all depend on. Fair trade ingredients in the product have been produced by small-scale farmer organizations or plantations that meet fair trade social, economic, and environmental standards.
So you mentioned standards. Can you elaborate on these standards and how they actually help?
Bob, I most definitely can. The standards include protection of workers' rights and the environment, payment of the fair trade minimum price, which allows producers to be paid a minimum price above the market value so that they may have a substantial profit for their goods. Furthermore, the producers receive an additional fair trade premium on top of the minimum price to invest in businesses or projects for the whole community rather than the single individual. The premium helps to develop the community and the profit goes straight toward the people. Fair trade works to benefit small-scale farmers and workers who are amongst the most marginalized groups globally through trade rather than aid to enable them to maintain their livelihoods and reach their potentials.
Well, that's just great, but what makes fair trade different?
Fair trade is 50% owned by farmers and workers. Fair trade works with a range of stakeholders, but our global system is 50% owned by producers, representing farmer and worker organizations. Small farmers equal voice. Producers have a say in decision-making with our General Assembly and on Fair Trade International's Board of Directors. Through the board and its committees, it helps to develop the community and the profit goes straight toward the people. Fair trade works to benefit small-scale farmers and workers who are amongst the most marginalized groups globally through trade rather than aid to enable them to maintain their livelihoods and reach their potentials.
Well, that's just great, but what makes fair trade different?
Fair trade is 50% owned by farmers and workers. Fair trade works with a range of stakeholders, but our global system is 50% owned by producers, representing farmer and worker organizations. Small farmers equal voice. Producers have a say in decision-making with our General Assembly and on Fair Trade International's Board of Directors. Through the board and its committee, decisions on overall strategy, use of resources, and setting prices, premiums, and standards.
So remember, whenever you see the fair trade logo, you are supporting farmers and workers as they work to improve their lives and their communities. Well, thank you, Ron.
Thank you, Bob. It's been a pleasure being on the show.
And now we're bringing in John Quattro from Harvard University, who doesn't believe in fair trade. John, come in, please.
Thank you, Bob, for having me. It's great to finally be on the show.
So, John, why don't you feel fair trade is effective in helping small farmers in these less developed countries?
Well, Bob, my first issue is that these extremely poor countries aren't really getting the fair stake in the fair trade that they should. If we look at coffee, for example, the poorest coffee growing countries are in Africa, Ethiopia, Kenya, Tanzania. Fair trade exports from these countries represent less than 10% of the coffee market through fair trade, while the fair share of the fair trade coffee is from middle income to middle poor countries such as Mexico, Brazil, and Colombia. Effective poor intervention is not being taken, and it should be targeted at the most poor and not the medium poor. So that's my first issue.
Wow, I didn't know that, but what about the premium that fair trade foundations pay these farmers? Don't they benefit the community?
Well, although fair trade pays a $0.2 premium over the world coffee prices to growers for, as they say, social and economic investment into the community, how this money is actually spent is hard to track. I was reading an article, and in the article, it was by the Stanford Social Innovation Review, which finds that many of these funds are invested into coffee cooperative buildings and salaries, not in schools, not in the community, which may explain why researchers fail to uncover many positive impacts of fair trade on the local community. I have a crazy number for you. To show you why fair trade is ineffective. In an experiment run by graduate students in San Francisco, they called it the taste of many mountains, it was found that the medium coffee drinker is amazingly willing to pay 50 cents more for fair trade coffee. However, we find that the best in a best case scenario, fair trade growers from this same cup of coffee will receive only 1/3 of a cent, which means that if someone not in the fair trade business and someone who is having the same amount of same coffee, the person in the fair trade would only get 1/3 of a cent more. That is absurd.
Wow. Well, thank you, John. This has been very eye-opening. If you want, we can bring in Ron for debate.
Oh, I would love that. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Just in. We have a fair trade agreement coming in live. Now, here's Patrick.
Thanks, Bob. This is Patrick with MSNFOX. We are coming in here now at a live fair trade agreement. Let's go check it out.
So if you do end up taking our product, what will happen is put the fair trade stamp on it in these stores, and from there it will sell it over larger than market price, but the premium that we get from that will go right back to you. One, you'll get more money. Two, you'll go back to your community, and three, you can put that towards anything, education for your children. Maybe you can even make your farms a little better. So would you like to do business with me? Bueno.
Good stuff. Now
Thanks,
back to you,
Patrick.
Bob.
And that concludes our segment on fair trade on MSNFOX. I hope you have learned something, and have a great day.
So what do you think? What do you say?
Bueno.
Okay, no.
Mom.
Fair trade is all about having better prices. Produced by small-scale farm through the board and its committee. Premium.
If you want, we can bring you to the debate with Ron.
Literally, we know the product and we put it in stores. In stores.
Wow.
Now back to you all.
Yeah. Yeah. Bueno.
Check it out.
I think you're stunk.
Mom.